Thank you for life itself, for the measure of health we need to fulfill our calling, for subsistence, for our friendships. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing appropriate responsibilities. Thank you as well for the freedom to embrace your goodness. Thank you also for loving us when we recognize your goodness and even when we don't, from your boundless and gracious love. You have said in your scripture, Lord, that citizens ought to obey the governing authorities since you have established those very authorities to promote peace, order, and justice. Therefore, Father, I pray for the mayor, for the various levels of city officials, and particularly for this assembled council. I'm asking for that you would graciously grant them wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues of life, a sense of welfare and true needs of our citizens, a keen thirst for justice and rightness, confidence in what is good and fitting, the ability to work together in harmony even when there's honest disagreement, personal peace in their lives, and joy in their tasks. I pray for the agenda set before them this evening. Please give them assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work in and around Fredericksburg. It is in your most blessed name that I pray this. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Tony Klein, if you'll come up and lead us in the pledge, but before I do that, I may fail to make an announcement. If y'all would please silence your phones or any other electronic devices, be much appreciated. Thank you. Tony?
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Employee recognitions.
Mayor and Council, I only have 2 employees to recognize this evening. First off, Mayor and Council, as you are well aware, we're on the home stretch as far as getting a new set of STR regulations in place. We've gone through a lot of work over the last 6, 8, 10 months, but we're almost there. It'll be on your agenda next month for your consideration. So I think we'd be remiss this evening if we didn't recognize 2 individuals that have played a really major role in getting us where we are today, and that's Clinton Bailey and Jason Lutz. All their work they've done on the STR regulations, all the hours they've spent, all the meetings they've had, the different drafts prepared for the STR regulations. So I think in addition to recognizing them this evening, we ought to give them a round of applause, Mayor and Council.
You bet. Thank you very much.
We're not there yet, but we're close. Okay, that's all, Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. It's always nice to hear public comments about our staff and a well-deserved pat on your backs as far as I'm concerned. I know you guys have been after it as well as everyone else in the community on trying to come to some sort of a good conclusion on this. So moving on, we'll go to public comments. We have 3 people who have signed up to speak to agenda items. And the first one would be Eric Hamerson. If you'll let us know if you're a city citizen, and you will be speaking to agenda item 14A.
Eric Hamerson, city resident. Thanks for the opportunity. First, let me reiterate the point that Kent made. Congratulations to both of those individuals. They have been superb in the work they have done. 14A is where you're going to appoint or consider appointing a city manager. I would commend to you the idea that before you get to the point of appointing, that you advertise widely. And I have no doubt that we have superb candidates here within town, but advertise widely. Look at the candidates that you have that present themselves, look at the candidates you have in-house, and then you can make the best decision that you can make as to who should be the city manager. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. David Shields and Jeanette Harmuth, you're on deck. David, if you don't mind, you're speaking to 9E.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And I failed to mention, you'll have 3 minutes. You'll get a 1-minute warning sound and then the sound when you're done. There you go. There's the sound you don't want to hear too often. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I just want to introduce myself as David Shields, Executive Director of the Gillespie County Historical Society. I succeeded Gerald Hoover in September of 2021. And I just wanted to let you know in reference to 9E that in a couple of days when the City Hot Funds applications are going to be submitted, that you would look favorably upon the application that I'm submitting on behalf of Gillespie County Historical Society and the Pioneer Museum. It's one that's very exciting, it's very dynamic, but it focuses on two concepts. One is reinvesting in our historical structures. We have a unique building on our structure, a Sunday house. We have already detailed plans from well-known designers to restore that building to its original look, but also not to leave it static, but to integrate it into a dynamic education program that will attract more people from outside of Fredericksburg and the large metropolitan areas that come here who are looking for family events, activities for their families to do. And that's what we plan to do. And so I hope that you'll look favorably upon that. Thank you very much.
David, you'll have another opportunity to do another sales pitch to us later when we start the hot fund process.
I will do that.
Looking
Thank you,
forward to
sir.
hearing from you again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeanette Hermuth, you would like to speak to 6A?
I'll just give a public comment.
Okay, I'll put you down. Oh, you're all right. Okay, good deal. Thank you, Jeanette. Well, that will end our public comment about agenda items. With that being said, I will move on to item 6, which is the consent agenda item. And the following items may be acted upon in a single motion. No separate discussion or action on any of these items will be held unless pulled at the request of a member of the city council. A, consider the approval of the city council minutes. I, January 31, 2022 special meeting. Double I, February 7, 2022 regular meeting. This council would like to pull one or the other or both. There being none, I will move. Move for motion.
I move to approve the consent items.
Okay. Second. Motion by Jerry and a second by Tom. Further discussion? There is none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed. There is none. Motion carries 5-0. I'm going to move item 7, 11. Let me be sure I get this right. Yeah, 11A, the introduction of our new housing coordinator to this part of our city council meeting. Kent?
Actually, I'll let him introduce himself, if that's okay, Mayor.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is Vince Michelle. As y'all are aware, on February 7th, I was selected to be the Affordable Housing Coordinator for the Gillespie County Economic Development Commission and the task force. I'm very excited to have this opportunity. In the end years of my professional career, I decided to try to assist those rural communities, especially in Texas, with the challenge that most communities are facing now, both rural and urban, but specifically in the rural communities, and that is with affordable housing and workforce housing. And so I sought out this this task, and I take it very seriously, and am ready for the challenge that it does face. So the good news is there is a way forward. We had a very good meeting with the task force today as a kickoff, a good 2-hour meeting, and what I submitted there was within the first 3 weeks. I'm in the process of completing a comprehensive housing study that will be available within the next week or two, and basically it's going to be the who, what, when, where, why, and how. It'll be a foundational document that is very informative, not only for you, city staff, but as well as the general public. So it will be very informative because, again, I think one of my most important responsibilities is to provide information, especially to you, because y'all are responsible for making decisions, and being able to make informed decisions is vitally important, especially with respect to this issue. So I'm very excited and looking forward to working with you and city staff, and can't wait to get started and continue. So I am available. my management style has always been an open door policy and willing to speak with anyone at any time. I've had the opportunity and the pleasure to meet many of y'all already and have conversations, and also some friendly faces that I have also visited with in the community. So I encourage everyone to reach out to me, and we can discuss and move forward and try to get everybody involved, because it's going to take everybody to solve this challenge. But I live about 15 miles south of NASA right now, so my motto on this project is failure is not an option, and it's not an option for this community. And so I'm going to do everything I can to push the ball forward. So thank you so much for the opportunity, and look forward to working with every one of you.
Okay, thank you. Any
Thank you, Van.
questions or
Any
comments,
questions I can
Council?
answer?
I have a couple of comments. You have quite a task to complete in 1 year. I challenge you to complete it. And-
Challenge accepted.
And bring forward a solution to the concerns our community has.
Yes, challenge is accepted.
you.
I will do everything I can, Mayor.
We did that with the golf course and they came through, so I expect no less from you.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your time and efforts to complete this.
Thank you very much.
Tom? You wanted to say something?
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, we're gonna move on now to item, anybody? Okay, item 7A, public hearings. A, consider holding a public hearing to receive comments for or against the voluntary annexation of approximately 21.46 acres of land and a request for zoning of single-family residential R1 zoning district located at 668 Piper Lane, Z2112. I'd like a motion to go out regular.
I move we go out regular in the public hearing.
Have a motion by
Second.
Jerry, second by Tom. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Is there anyone here in the audience who'd like to speak to this? By your silence, I take that as a no, so I'll entertain a motion.
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead. I didn't see you stand up, I'm sorry.
I'm Mark Cornett with Cornett Engineering. I'm here representing the applicant for the annexation, if anybody has any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Any questions?
In the, I guess on page 17, is, I guess in the summary, says the property would be required to extend utilities. Is that the developer? Okay, the developers. Okay.
Okay.
And they want to come in as R1 and not R1A? R1, okay.
Other questions, concerns, staff, council? There being none, I'll entertain a motion to go
I
out.
move we go out of public hearing back in regular session.
Have a motion by Tom,
Second.
second by Jerry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, there is none, motion carries. Going on to item 7B, consider holding a public hearing to receive comments for or against the changes to 1100 Friendship Lane, Z2202. I, change the comprehensive plan of the city specifically in the land use map as to approximately 14.28 acres of land being a portion of the W.H. Anderson number 197, abstract number 2, changing said property from mixed use corridor NU to commercial C, providing that the change become part of the comprehensive plan. Double I, change the zoning ordinance of the city and changing the zoning district approximately 14.28 acres of land being a portion of the W.H. Anderson number 197, abstract number 2, situated in the city, changing said property from industrial park M3 to commercial C2. Entertain a motion to go out of regular.
I move we go out of regular session in
A
public
motion
hearing.
by Tom,
Second.
second by Jerry. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Anyone here like to speak to that? Oh, there he is. Thank you, Kevin. If
Hey, Charlie.
you'll introduce yourself, you snuck in on me. Thank you.
You had your head down, so I'm just gonna let you keep going.
Now, do you want to talk? Is it public hearing or do you want to, should he be talking when it's the agenda item?
I think we'll let you talk an agenda item. That's the,
Either way, I just
well,
wanted to
I think unless,
let you know.
yeah,
Because
Already
in public
did it
hearing,
twice.
we don't ask questions.
yeah,
Okay. All
yeah,
right.
we'll get to you in a minute.
Okay.
We'll give you your say.
Absolutely. Okay, that being said, I'll entertain a motion.
I move we go out of public hearing and back in the regular
So moved.
session.
Second.
By Jerry, and a second by Tom. Further discussion, there is none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 5-0. Moving on to 7C, consider the holding a public hearing to receive comments for or against the amending zoning ordinance of the city to approve an amendment to the planned unit development PUD to allow a land use of hotel motel pertaining to 10.9 acres of land being described as lots 1 and 2 and 3 of the Feller subdivision, phase 1, located at 511 and 565 East Main Street, situated in the city. Z2201. I'll entertain a motion to go out of regular.
Move out of regular session into public hearing.
Have a motion by Tom,
Second.
second by Jerry. Any further discussion? There is none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Anybody out in the audience would like to speak to this?
I move we go out of public hearing back in the regular.
Second.
Have a motion by Jerry and a second by Bobby. Any further discussion? There being none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, there is none, motion carries. Now we're gonna move to item 9A, as I've been instructed to do, be on a legal path. 9A being consider the approval of voluntary annexation agreement of approximately 21.46 acres of land to construct a single-family subdivision along Piker Road. That'd be you, Jason.
Thank you, Mayor Councilor. So yes, this item here is for an annexation agreement. That is the first step in a voluntary annexation process before we can attribute the zoning on the property. The applicant is adjacent to the city limits. They are adjacent to R4 zoning. They would like to come into the city, be voluntarily annexed, and this agreement will do that. There are no special provisions, variances, or any type of land use associations with this. It'll be straight zoning. The applicant would be required to extend utilities at their expense. Most of the utilities are in PICA, and so they will be extending to the boundaries of their subdivision for their own use and future connectivity. They are requesting the the R1 zoning district, and we'll tackle that on the next agenda item after this. So this is just the annexation agreement. Staff does recommend approval of that request.
Thank you, Jason. Anybody have any comments? Council, Jerry?
No.
Does the applicant talk? Now's the time
Yeah.
to talk more. Trailer park, pop-up tents, affordable housing.
Milk machine.
Well, this is just the annexation agreement. No problem. Jason and I've worked together on that. It's the same, very similar to what was on Post Oak Village. And the one thing that will come on down the road is once we have some drainage issues worked out. There's a relatively complex drainage issue going down there. And we'll probably be coming back and talking about a development agreement with that. It's down the road.
Kathy?
No questions.
Bobby?
No questions.
Jerry?
No.
I don't have any.
No questions.
With that being said, I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve as presented.
Second.
Have a motion by Bobby and a second by Jerry. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, there is none, motion carries 5-0. Now we'll move back to 8A, ordinance and resolutions. Excuse me. Consider the approval of ordinance 2022-09 annexing to the city approximately 21.46 acres of land out of Outlot 165, Outlot 170, and part of the Outlot Street as shown on the map of Fredericksburg, and versions of the German Immigration Company in Gillespie County, Texas, located at 668 Piker Road, extending to the corporate limits of the city so as to include said territory, granting to all inhabitants, future inhabitants of said territory, all the rights and privileges of other citizens of the city, binding the inhabitants and future inhabitants of said territory by any and all acts, ordinances, resolutions, and regulations of said city, and amending the zoning ordinance of the city to establish a zoning district of said territory as R1, single-family residential. City council may waive the second reading. Jason?
Yes, so this ordinance will establish the requested zoning for the previously approved annexation agreement. As you see on the future land use plan, this area is called out low-density residential, so this is in line, this request is in line with our zoning. Staff recommends approval as requested.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Council, any questions? Jerry?
What kind of houses are gonna be put on there? Just
We're just
five
following
hundred
straight.
$1,000 homes or what?
Well, that's not really, I don't know the answer. Just R1 lots, and, we've got a land plan, but we're trying to work through that with, again, respect to the drainage. There'll be
Yeah.
between probably 7,500 to 10,000 square foot lots. That's just the way the geometry works out.
Bobby?
No questions.
Tom?
Okay, a question for Jason, since they're requesting R1 and any voluntary annexation property that comes in, is that the default zoning?
We do, that is the default zoning.
The only reason I ask that is that it is contiguous to R4 zoning.
So we don't have actually a default zone that they come in. It says shall be as for the comprehensive plan. So in this case, this is coming in under the request of the future land use plan. So they do match up.
Okay, so, that's fine.
Kathy?
No question.
Okay. If motions is made, one might want to consider waiving the second reading, if that's appropriate.
I'll move to approve and waive the second reading as presented.
Have a motion by Bobby,
I'll second that.
have a second by Jerry. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? There is none. Motion carries 5-0. Going on to 8B, consider the approval of changes to 1100 Friendship Lane. Jason?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This one is, if it looks familiar, we did the first half of this zoning and land use change at the beginning of.
Jason, let me apologize. I don't think I read the whole package there.
Okay.
I should have gone to the next page. If you don't,
Aye.
let me repeat that, please. I apologize. Consider the approval of changes to 1100 Friendship Lane. Ordinance 2022-10, adopting a change in the comprehensive plan of the city, specifically in the land use map as approximately 14.28 acres of land, being a portion of the W.H. Anderson number 197, abstract number 2, located at 1100 Friendship Lane, changing the said property from mixed-use corridor, MU, to commercial, providing that the change become part of the comprehensive plan and providing for an effective date. The city may waive the second reading. Ordinance 2022-11, amending the ordinance of the city and changing the zoning district as to approximately 14.928 acres of land, being a portion of the W.H. Anderson number 197, abstract number 2, located at 1100 Friendship Lane, situated in the city, changing said property from industrial part M3 to commercial C2, and providing for an effective date. City council may waive the second reading. Please, now, I apologize, Jason, getting you started.
Thank you, Mayor. You're good. So this request is two parts. One is a future land use change and then the subsequent zoning. As I was saying, if this looks familiar, this property, one half of the tract was changed to future land use from MU to commercial, and you can see that here on the cursor. This is just bringing the second half of the tract into the same future land use plan. And obviously, those are being done for a reason of future land use or a proposed development. They are looking at this site to be a possible hotel conference center site. Again, the M3 is not a compatible use, especially between C2 and next to the high density residential R3. So this will bring the whole site under the C2 zoning and the commercial future land use. So staff does recommend approval of both requests as presented.
Thank you. Any questions? I'll start with Kathy.
I don't have any questions.
Tom?
No questions.
Bobby?
No questions.
No question.
Okay. Daniel, on the motion, do we do I first and then double I second?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. So if motion would need to be carrying a waive the second reading, it'd be appropriate to be added, so.
Okay,
I'll
Mayor,
entertain a-
I will move that we adopt a change in the comprehensive plan of the city of Fredericksburg specifically in the land use map for approximately 14.28 acres of land, being a portion of the W.H. Anderson 197 abstract number 2, located at 1100 Friendship Lane, changing zoning from mixed-use corridor MU to commercial, and waive the second reading.
Second.
Have a motion by Tom, a second by Jerry. Any further discussion? There is none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There is none. Motion carries 5-0. Entertain a motion for the double aye.
Mayor, I will make a motion to amend the zoning ordinance of the city of Fredericksburg and changing the zoning district as to approximately 14.28 acres of land being a portion of W.H. Anderson number 197, abstract number 2, located at 1100 Friendship Lane, situated in the city, and changing the zoning from M3 Industrial Park to commercial C2 and providing for an effective date and waiving the second reading.
Second.
Motion by Tom, second by Jerry. Any further discussion? There is none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There is none. Motion carries 5-0. Moving to 8C, consider the approval of ordinance 2022-12, amending the zoning ordinance of the city to approve an amendment to the plan unit development PUD to allow land use of hotel, motel pertaining to 10.98 acres of land being described as lots 1, 2, and 3 of the Feller subdivision, Phase 1, located at 511 and 51565 East Main, situated in the city of Fredericksburg, Texas. The city council may waive a second reading. Jason?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So this request, if you know, this site is for the, what is known as the Sutherland site on the top portion, and then there's some vacant property here. This was the original PUD from 1984, I believe, that established the first Walmart. So this property's PUD documents was done as a plat. So there are multiple land uses that are allowed, retail, restaurant, a lot of commercial uses. It functions as a C2. Hotel motel was not allowed as part of this PUD. So because the applicant is looking to develop the southern side in conjunction with possibly the adjacent tract for hotels, they needed to request this land use be added. From staff's perspective, the only concern or issues that we have is because the property was based via plat, we would recommend that the property owner replat the property to include the new PUD information and land use. And there was also some variances to our sign ordinances and some setbacks that were done to kind of get the original Walmart sign approved. We would recommend that any development take place on this future tract here would be in line with current adopted codes and not with what may or may not be allowed via PUD. So those are the only two conditions staff has. We do recommend approval of the amendment.
So question that I have is this better? Okay, since this is one big PUD, would it be cleaner to replat the property and have the PUD for the Sutherlands and the undeveloped property on the northern end, and then have a separate zoning? I don't know.
I think ideally, we probably would love to just get rid of the PUD and go to straight zoning, but I do know the owner has some concerns. There's different owners there as part of the Sutherlands.
Okay.
So they didn't want to open the whole thing back up. They were comfortable with what they had. So I think at this point, the easiest and quickest solution is to move forward. Now, redevelopment of the entire site, either via Sutherlands or some future development, then at that point, we should probably have those conversations.
I'm in favor of the change in the PUD, but any kind of new regulations that have been passed since I think it was in 1981, is when the Walmart PUD was set up. Any new regulations that the city has adopted since that time, I think the applicant needs to be. They need to be sure that they are that they comply with any new regulations.
So, yes, I think specifically you're asking about the corridor regulations.
We're talking about corridor regulations.
Yes, they would have to comply with the
signage.
corridor regulations. Yes, sir.
Yeah, signage. Is this going to be an entrance into the back part? Is this all part of one big thing?
So this is all part of the Feller track, and you see that it is for sale, and it's the 4 acres that is for sale. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to clean this up so it can be a part of the hotel if needed. There may be retail in the front, there may be a restaurant in the front. And so and this came up at P and Z as well, is that all we're trying to do is add hotel to this overall umbrella. And so all the other pieces, I think, of commercial are already in place. This was just left out because in 81, no one considered hotel at the time. So we do have signatures from the owners in the corner, Sutherland, and they've all agreed to this and said, okay, you can add this to it. And so that's the kind of, as Jason was saying, is the cleanest method. Go forward with that. And that would allow hotel plus the different things that could go along.
Any kind of retail. Is it okay? I mean, it's okay for retail right now, but just not for hotel.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a whole list of uses. Some of them match up with our current definitions. Some I think are from the older code. So
Okay.
we'll have to square those away if they propose something that's not specifically
Would
listed.
them, if they propose something that was not in the 1981 PUD, they would have to come back to you?
Yeah, they would have to come back to this board, unless it was a use that had a similar definition that we could feel comfortable giving that interpretation.
That's fine.
Kathy?
I think the question I had, Thomas, I have nothing.
Bobby?
No questions?
Jerry?
No, I think I'll still need to think on it. That just looks, it looks like a whole lot of motel development, and I just hope everybody can make it.
Well, I mean, these are national guys, so yeah, they do their study before they come in. So
Okay. Okay, well,
I have a question. Yeah, you said there were 2 conditions. Could you repeat what those conditions were?
Yes, sir. The first condition was that the property be replatted to add the additional PUD information to this document. And the second, that the condition be the property vacant tract be developed in accordance with all current city standards.
And that's shown on page 50, is that correct?
On page 53, it's in the ordinance.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Do we need to state that in the motion, Daniel?
I'd be comfortable if you just state the number of the ordinance.
Okay, good deal. Thank
Okay.
you.
Mayor, I move that we approve ordinance 2022-12, amending the zoning ordinance of the city of Fredericksburg to approve an amendment to a planned units development to allow a land use of hotel motel pertaining to 10.98 acres of land being situated as lots 1, 2, and 3 of the Feller subdivision phase 1 located at 1511 and 1565 East Main Street, situated in the city of Fredericksburg, and waive the second reading.
Second. Motion by Tom and second by Bobby. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There is none. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Moving on to agenda 8B. Consider the approval of resolution 2022-03R appointing an early voting clerk, deputy early voting clerk, judges and alternate judge, and adding provisions to the conduct of such elected and resolving other matters related to the conduct of the election for the May 7th, 2022 general election. Shelley?
So the resolution before you tonight is for the purpose of appointing judge, alternate judges, early voting clerks, deputy early voting clerks. This resolution also includes the signature verification committee. And I recommend that due to the large amount of applications for ballot by mail that we've already received, and because legislative session made some changes to the way we have to process carrier envelopes, I believe that this would help the early voting ballot board by having a signature verification committee. The resolution also provides additional information regarding pay of workers and notice requirements. One of these requirements is that the notice of the canvass of the election be posted. The time frame for the canvass of the election is May the 10th through May the 18th. But the city has a provision in the charter that says that the mayor and council become effective on May the 15th. And due to the deadlines that the city election still has on May the 12th and May the 13th, and we need to make the charter requirement, I recommend canvassing the May 7th general election on Saturday, May the 14th at 9 a.m. And to canvass the election, we will need to have 2 members of the council present. I'd also like to bring to your attention the video created by Lee. This video is on our homepage and is about what you need to know about voting in the May 7th, 2022 general election. This is very informative and will help everyone with the dates and the different requirements. And I want to thank Lee for putting that together.
Thank you, Sean. Questions, Jerry?
Let's see, where's it at? The county. Now, is there gonna be a pay rate adjustment for, do we have bilingual in the election, or? I know the county, they have gotten in a couple, and they've done,
We can pay them extra, but it's just a provision that you make.
and we had a problem with, not having a bilingual individual there? Or
No, there will be bilingual.
there will be some there?
Yes.
I guess that's all.
Okay. Are you not still?
Well,
Good, Green.
I was thinking about the signage and all that other stuff. I'm just reading what the county did. So,
County's not holding this election.
Bobby?
No questions.
Yeah. So Shelley, on the signature verification, are you going to have a committee and for that, and how many people are going to be on the committee?
There's a committee of 5, but the 5 members who work on the signature verification committee cannot work in early vote ballot board. So it might be a struggle for me to find 5 that I should be able to. They'll probably be the same people that will work at your polls.
Are there any particular qualifications?
You have to be a city resident and registered voter.
Is there a background check?
No.
Good. I'm just kidding. Okay. Kathy?
No, I don't have
I don't
questions.
have any
Thanks, Shelley.
Okay, with that being said, I will entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve as presented.
Second.
Second, motion by Kathy, second by Bobby. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, there is none, motion carries. Moving on to item 9B. Consider approval of SKT Architects as the design consultant for Phase 2 and contract for professional services related to the Fredericksburg Visitors Information Center expansion. Evan? Like, don't do this to me. It scares me. Okay,
hanging up here.
you're there. If you'll introduce yourself, please.
Yes, I am Evan Williamson, staff engineer with the city of Fredericksburg. Just going to talk quickly about this project. We'll take you through a little bit of a presentation just to get you up to speed about the project itself, the selection process, and the professional services contract. So we'll go to this next slide and we'll be able to see that line up there. So that's kind of our roadmap. So this is the Phase 2 expansion of the Visitor Information Center. You can see Phase 1 there on Austin Street, right behind the Pacific War Museum. This space that you see highlighted in red was reserved for this expansion to accommodate some conference room, more office space, a little bit of a catering space that's connected to that conference room, as well as the lobby, restroom, storage, janitorial, and all that stuff that would be associated with this this area. So it would kind of be a standalone section of the Visitor Information Center on that back side. So we put out a request for qualifications late in October last year. We held a pre-submittal meeting there in November and received submittals on the 16th. You can see the 10 firms that submitted there. So we did get good participation from architects all across the state, really. And on this next slide, we put together a team to review all of those submittals of qualifications. So I'm sure you'll see a lot of familiar names there. And we did our scoring based on this criteria, including the cover letter with an introduction of their firm, the basic qualifications of the firm, their ability to perform the work, their technical capabilities, and then the performance history. And this was for the firms themselves, as well as their subs, other firms that they would be teaming with on the project. Also, we took a look at their project approach for this expansion and the scope of services that they would be able to provide. And lastly, we considered their geographic proximity and really just their availability and responsiveness. So here you can see the firms and all of their scores and how those results shook out. We did have some good participation. So we took those top 2 firms, SKT and Mustard Design, and we invited them back early in January. And that review team sat down with them, interviewed the firms one-on-one, and got to meet with their representatives and got to hear a little bit more specifics about their approach and their firm. And ultimately, SKT was selected by the team for this project. Here's our some snips from their SKT submittal. You can see over on that left-hand side, this is the team that will be working on this project. You'll see Randy there is going to be the architect with SKT. And then he's also teaming up with Alan Linskog from CEC. Alan did the original site engineering for that phase 1 of the visitor center, so he's very familiar with this site. And then you can see their structural engineer, MEP, landscape architect, and interior designer. And these are some other projects from around town. You can obviously see the first phase.
Kevin, would you name those out, because the screen I'm seeing, I can't read it.
Oh, so the civil engineer is Alan Linskog.
Thank you.
Yeah. With CEC, the structural engineer is Jeff Smith with Smith Structural. MEP is Todd Keener with Keener Engineering. Landscape architect is Brian Mask with Dunaway Associates, and the interior designer is Misty Weibold, M Group.
Thank you.
And the other text is also very small. I just grabbed some screenshots from their submittal, but you'll see some familiar sites. The first phase of the visitor center, some conceptual designs that were done for phase 2 in 2014. They've also worked on the University Center, the Pioneer Museum, the Bethany Lutheran Church, and the Consolidated Warehouse. So they've done a lot of work in our immediate area in the historic district and a lot of these building blocks around town. So as we move on to talking about the contract, they'll be able to take us through the schematic design, the design development, those construction documents, all the way up to 100% construction plans. They'll be, riding along with us through the procurement process, where we'll let this project for construction and receive those bids. And then they'll also be helping along with construction administration. Those supplemental services you see there will be the civil engineering for the site, the interior design, landscape architecture, and if necessary, we can also work in some audio and video and acoustics for that conference space as needed. And so here's just a summary of that contract. The estimated construction cost is just a little under that 1.4 million number, and the estimate for the architecture and engineering is that $165,500. And this project is based on that estimated construction cost. And so the compensation is going to be on a percentage basis at an hourly rate. The architect's basic services will be that 8% of that estimated construction cost. And then those supplemental services that we named earlier are going to be on an hourly basis as well. So we'll look to go through this design phase and get our documents and our bid documents all ready to go and get all of our budget numbers nailed down for the upcoming budget year. And then in the next fiscal year, we'll be able to go out for bids for construction. So that's just a quick flyover. Brandon Weinheimer is here in the audience from SKT. So if y'all have questions for them, he'll be able to answer those. And I also see Ernie here sitting with us. So if y'all have some questions about the goals of the project or the space itself, hopefully he wouldn't mind jumping up here and answering some of those.
Thank
So,
you.
Evan, is this basically a duplicate wing to the one that's already out there?
I don't know that it will be a duplicate wing. I think
it's same. Is it going to go out, I guess, as far to the parking lot on the side?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Okay. Yeah. That green space is there with that sidewalk kind of crisscrossing in there. And so this will, in addition to some landscape features and things like that, kind of fill up that area.
Kathy?
So am I correct that this will all be paid for with hotel funds?
I believe this is coming from the tourism fund, yes.
I just, I'm not aware that there was such a great need for a boardroom that would take up a really lovely area of commercial area around the chamber building and the CBB building, which now has trees and grass and makes the entrance from the parking lot, visitors and other people, residents, enter a kind of a pleasant landscape.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I wasn't on the council when Ernie first asked for this or started discussing this addition.
Well, to speak to a couple of those things, the trees that are there, I think there's only one tree that's in pretty bad shape. If you see it, that might actually be removed. The space itself will retain a lot of those trees, and the goal would be to kind of improve that access from that parking lot side, to have this side of the building be more of a feature and more inviting, and then to also include more landscape. So the green space that you see kind of on the Austin Street side and even on the parking lot side, a couple of those spaces, we intend to retain. That was what was communicated to me during the site visit. So hopefully the goal would be to be able to provide these facilities and these spaces, but then also accommodate the outdoor spaces as well. Ernie had said that a lot of the folks that work there do enjoy going outside, taking their lunch outside. And so hopefully during this design phase, we're able to improve that space and provide for that use.
Will that design phase be done in coordination with parking lot concept?
Yes. So that was one thing that we did tell the firms that we interviewed, that there would be some coordination with the parking garage that is proposed on that site. So there is an expectation of some coordination going on there. So I know the parking garage is in pretty early phases, but we do anticipate that, yes.
Bobby?
I do know that the visitor center, the CBB, is out of space and is definitely needing more office space as well as a larger conference room. So I think it's a good project and I'm for it.
Thank you. Jared?
Well, now that you brought that up, I guess you brought up the parking garage and that.
Mm-hmm.
You look back in there and there's a bunch of RVs in there with fifth wheels and all that. They're going to be a place for them to park those back there?
As far as I know, those RV spaces will be retained and kind of incorporated into the parking garage there.
No, I know they need more room over there. And it's needed. Oh, there's Ernie. I thought it was Moisey Bach.
Thank you, Jerry.
You're welcome, Ernie.
I have no comments. I think they've all been addressed. Any other comments from staff or Ernie? Do you have Comment?
I move to approve the SK.
Wait a minute. Ernie's coming up.
Ernie, okay, come on. Oh, I thought it was
Yeah, I would just add that COVID taught us that our conference room is very, very small, has been for many years, but even more so now. And really the way the building is going to be designed, we hope to make that conference area available to the, nonprofits and people that need a meeting space that often are looking for a place. So we want to be more, inclusive of the community, I guess, and it'll have a separate entrance so it can be used in the evenings without the whole building being open. So anyway, that's part of the logic behind that. And like I said, right now we cram sometime, or used to, haven't since COVID, 20 people into a conference room that was designed for 12 people. So that's part of the logic, but hopefully to be available for more community use as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ernie.
I can attest to the crowded nature of the conference.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. With that being said, Jerry, I think you were about to start something there.
Oh, am I ready now?
Yes.
Okay. I move to approve the architecture design by SKT for the phase 2 of the visitor center.
Okay, we have a motion by Jerry. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Bobby. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There is none. Motion carries 5-0.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
You bet. Moving on to items C, 9C, consider the approval of the issuance of request for proposal and qualifications for the hotel/conference center project. Kent?
Mayor and Council, this agenda item seeks your request for the staff to issue a request for qualifications and proposals for the hotel conference center. So just some background information on this agenda item. In your packet is the actual request for qualifications and proposals. This was prepared, we used the template from the last request for qualifications and proposals, and we've updated that information using input from Ernie and Tim and Clinton. And in a minute, I'll tell you what the changes we've made from the prior request. Just a little history on this project. This project actually started about 5 years ago when the HVS Consulting Group did their original feasibility study on the feasibility of a hotel conference center here in our community. And we actually went through 2 different requests for proposals and qualifications processes. The first process we went through did not generate any qualified responses. And so soon thereafter, we went out, the council approved a second request. We sent those out. And as you know, we received a request for a proposal for the site across from the post office at the Y. Through a period of about 18 months of negotiating and with the developer, the developer of that tract was not able to retain their financing for that project. So about 18 months ago, the council rejected that project, and it's sat idle for the last 18 months. In January of this year, the city council had a special meeting at the Cardinal Room. And during that meeting, you were presented an updated report from HVS Consulting that again documented the feasibility of a hotel conference center here in our community. However, one of the recommendations in that study was a conference center at a reduced size than what was previously recommended. So we have taken it, the HVS study was presented to the council at your January 31st meeting. In addition to that, there were representatives from 3 different development teams that attended your meeting to express their interest in submitting a proposal for this project. And for the benefit of the public in attendance tonight, we're talking about 3 different sites that the developers have discussed with the council. The one site is back at the Y. The developing team for that site has changed. They have new team members that represent that site, and they have indicated that they can feel like they can get financing this go around. The second site is behind Sutherland's, between Sutherland's and the 1019 apartments on Friendship Lane. The developer of that project, you just approved a zoning change for that tonight. He would like to develop 2 hotels and a conference center on that site. And then the third site that was represented at that meeting on January 31st was the Frieden property along 87 South across from the movie theater. The developer of that site not only plans housing they're developing housing right now at Freedon, but they also have, submitted plans for an apartment complex on that site on 87. And they would also like to build a hotel conference center along 87 there. So based upon this new new level of interest that has been addressed to the council instructed staff at the end of our meeting on January 31st to prepare this request for proposals that's being presented to you tonight. So a couple of changes I wanted to note for the council that were discussed at the meeting that have been incorporated into the revised request. We have, first of all, updated the information from the HVS study that includes a decrease in the size of the meeting facilities. Those, again, were included in the study, and those adjustments have been made. And then we talked at the January 31st meeting about the need for whoever develops that project to have a staffing plan included in their proposal on how, because of the labor force issues here in our community, how they plan to hire employees that would staff that project, including any sort of housing proposal that they would offer to house those employees through a workforce housing project on site or off site. And then the third major change, since we did have problems in the last go round with the developer getting financing, this time we're asking for more verification that their financing is in place. So we'll look for exact documents that will show their level of financing, and we'll be reviewing those as part of the proposal review process. So those are the major changes from the last go round. In addition to that, Ernie had indicated at the meeting on January 31st, all the meetings that have been turned away recently by the CVB staff. Again, we get a lot of requests from associations that want to have their meetings here in Fredericksburg, but we don't have the facilities to accommodate their needs. And so Ernie and his staff have tracked those requests that can't be fulfilled, and they have generated a report, which I was received last week, that summarizes all the meetings that have been turned away over the last couple of years, and pretty significant because this is lost business for our community, and the majority of this is business during the week when, as you know, a lot of our hotels and other lodging facilities are not fully occupied. So the majority of these meetings would come in the time frame of Monday through Thursday, and again, we're turning those meetings away because we don't have meeting facilities. And so the conference center that's being proposed, it will, again, accommodate those needs, and we will see a lot more meetings come to our community if that project is developed. So with that, I'll stop and see if you have any questions. Ernie and Tim are also here this evening in case you have any questions for them.
Thank you, Karen. Kathy, I'm going to start with you. Any questions?
No. Well, I think I like the document that you prepared, Kent. I think I think it says what we needed to say. My concerns are that when we start talking about having midweek venue for conferences, conventions, or so that we could use those days that were not generally open to visitor or visited by tourists, and so that we had more room in our tourist industry for more people during the week. It's my observation over the last few years that we have plenty of tourists during the week. We don't have parking on Main Street anymore. We have restaurants we can't even get into on Wednesday night all over town. That's midweek. So my concern is moving forward with this, even though I like the document you prepared, whether the end result, should there be a hotel conference center, will be good for Fredericksburg. At some point, we discussed this earlier today, but at some point, we reach a tipping point, and I think we may have reached it, where for lack of workforce, primarily, businesses start cutting back on their hours or their services. And we've already seen that happen in town. So I think we should keep that concern that issue in mind with whatever we do going forward. But so this would be one of the elements of that concern. And I know we're just approving it back.
Thank you, Kathy. Bobby,
I don't have any questions right now.
Tom?
I think that the new RFQ is good because it hits many of the points that we have been discussing since the contract with the Seven Hills people. I think it's very important for the community up front to understand a couple of things. I think I like this section that's included in the submission requirements on the approach to financing and ownership, that the people coming in understand exactly where the city stands on operations, that what they're going to have to do, what we expect them to do, issues. I think any hotel coming into this community is, they must be aware of the availability of the workforce here. If they are not aware of that, then they haven't done their homework in our community. So I think having a document that puts things up front, I like the idea of the financing and ownership plan in phase two, that people need to be, investors need to be aware of where the city stands as far as any kind of public help to this organization, to any kind of new hotel conference center. And then in the selection process, I'm very glad to see that the very first criteria in the selection criteria is the ability to secure project financing and make necessary investments. I think that up front, they need to be, the investor needs to be upfront with the community. Yes, we can do this, or no, we're going to have problems. I don't want to be in another situation that we were with the last group, where we did not have the power to get anything done. So I would hope that any kind of a contract that we sign from the city with a potential hotel has language in there that ensures that we are kept informed as to what their financial status is. And if they get into trouble, they need to be able to, or if they're having difficulties, they need to communicate those difficulties to us. So.
Okay, so Councilman, you're suggesting a very short drop dead date for the project to come up with their financing, like 90 days or something like that?
Well, no, I'm not suggesting that because, I'm not a hotel expert, and it might take longer than that, but I think there needs to be open, honest communication. I'm having problems raising the money, and this is the direction we're going. And so we want to let you know about that, and so that at least we have some understanding. I think the last time was more open-ended, and I think that needs to be tightened up.
Actually, I do have a couple of comments. One, I'm glad that the facility that we're advertising for is smaller than the original. I think that helps. I think it'll be more affordable that way also. But yet at the same time, it's bigger than any facility we have in town. And we do need a larger facility that will hold certain larger events. The larger fundraisers have difficult time finding appropriate venues to have their events. So I think this will be great. Part of this deal is also that a certain number of days will be set aside for community use. So I think that's good. I really like the fact that they have to address workforce housing to some degree, and also that they have to show that they have the financing to do the project. So, thank you.
Jerry?
Yeah, I get, I agree with Kathy and Tom and Bob and Bobby on, I see the need because Ernie and Tim have presented us the numbers that the need is out there for this conference center, but I guess my big concern is about, the help, finding the help to do it. I was talking with Kelly Offers today, and she deals with the daycares and the whole, food establishments and things like this. And she was saying that, there's like 2 of the daycares are closing and there's some restaurants that might be closing because they just can't find help. So, we need to be able to figure that out. How do we do that? And this is where Vince is going to be. Hopefully he'll come up with some great ideas and help getting us moving in the right direction in order to get enough help in here to help out on all these things. That's all I got.
Okay, thank you. Only yeah, I agree completely with many of the comments. One of the things that, number one, and there could be other folks out there interested. It's just not limited to these 3 firms that were there that day. So it could be anybody and everybody can join the.
That's great.
Join the hunt. And I think Tom alluded to it. I don't like open-end timetables. I think with staff, to develop some reasonable time elements into this, contract when it's, presented to these folks, because, as a council member and now as mayor, I don't want to be strung out 18 months with, we're almost there, and I made the comment, if y'all remember, I said, when are y'all going to be digging dirt? He said on November. What I failed to ask was what year? And, so, it's the right asking the right question. So yes, I think there should not be an open-end timeline, and whatever is appropriate for you all to decide and develop that, with that contract. So with that being said, any further discussion from council or staff?
I just wanted to ask Kent if there had been any discussion internally, or that you can remember from the council about any incentives for these.
Again, Councilmember, we talked about that a little bit on at the meeting on January 31st. The only incentive that we're really putting out there to, with a guarantee is the state incentives that were approved by the legislature in 2019. And that is a 10-year rebate of the hot taxes and a 10-year of the state hot taxes and a 10-year rebate of the state sales tax. Now, previously, we did pledge some local hot taxes, but we've told all the developers we may or may not provide that incentive. It depends on, the quality of their proposal and all that, subject to negotiation. But we would offer them what's available for one project according to the state law, and that is the rebate of the state hot taxes, state sales tax.
I think at this point, and going forward, if you look forward a few years from now when this might actually come online, that we may be in a even more dire situation with workforce, with the number of cars in our streets and the number of tourists who come here. So I wouldn't think, I would say that whoever wants to build one of these should do it on their own, and the city doesn't have to incentivize people to come here until we figure out a way to make it work for all businesses. And that means workforce, everything that goes along with it.
But again, the incentives is all subject to negotiation that the council would have with the developer. Depends on the size, location, how many days they offer for community events, and all that would be negotiated.
I understand. We're not at that point. But I don't think we should quit thinking of that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? You know, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that we approve the issuance of a request for proposals and qualifications for the Hotel Conference Center project.
There's a motion by Jerry here, a second.
Second.
Second by Bobby. Any further discussion? Oh, I'm sorry. That was the motion by Tom, second by Bobby. I apologize. Any further discussion? There being none? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There is none. Motion.
No, I oppose.
Okay, one, motion carries 4-1. Thank you, Kathy, for your vote. Moving on to, D, consider the approval of the city manager's performance goals for 2022. Kent?
Okay, Mayor and Council, in your packet on page 103 to 106 are the goals that we have talked about over the last month or so. These are pretty ambitious goals, but ones that I think are achievable. And I wanted to let you know that we've already started working in some of these areas, so I'll just kind of give you a little progress report. Those are on page 105. And one goal that Councilman O'Neill added last week probably goes without saying, and that is to work with a new housing coordinator to explore potential public-private partnerships for workforce housing. And of course, we're underway with that goal with the hiring of Vince, Michelle, and so going through the list, tonight in the city manager's report, I'll give you an update on the recruitment process for the selection of the new police chief. So we've got that process kicking off. That's one of the goals for the coming year. Number 4, Clinton and I are meeting with the fire chief and some of the fire representatives tomorrow to start looking at sites for the 3rd fire station out east of here. That's a goal that you set on number 4 there. Number 6, in the city manager's report tonight, I'll give you an update on the comprehensive planning process that we're kicking off, the consultants that we're currently considering. And so that goal is underway of being accomplished. I sent out a note to the council last week about the long-range staffing and space study. We're getting ready to hire a firm to get that study going. Hopefully we'll be able to retain that firm this week. Today I selected, number 8 there, I selected 12 employees today for the 4th employee leadership training class. That training class will start in March and go on for 4 months. We've got 12 employees from various city departments that are included in that program. Number 10, Clinton and I and Eric will be meeting with finance staff this week to start working on improving some of the efficiencies in the financial department to create, to minimize duplication and improve software and other efficiencies. So we'll be meeting with finance staff this week to get that going. And then I've already talked about number 11. So all these goals, even though they are pretty ambitious, we're already getting started on these. And so I think for the most part, we won't have any problem getting them accomplished between now and October 1st. So that's all I have on that, Mayor. I would recommend your approval of these goals this evening. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Questions? Ken, on number 3, the use of excess sales tax revenues for new capital improvement fund. What will the capital improvement fund be used for?
Whatever the council decides, that will be your decision. Again, over the last 2 years, we've had excess sales tax collected. And what Laura had recommended is after we get the audit completed in April, we will probably have somewhere between $1 million to $2 million in excess sales tax, that instead of spending that money, we use that to set up a special fund, capital improvement fund, that the council would be able to utilize in the future for any capital improvement projects that you might have. They could be street improvements. They could be part of the city, next city hall improvements. They could go towards the police station. It would be up to y'all during your annual budget discussions to utilize that fund, but not spend the money, put it in reserve in a capital improvement fund.
And it would just carry over from year to year?
As well as parks.
Parks, yes, any capital improvement would be up to your decision.
And then the second question I had was on number 4, for the 3rd fire station. So we are looking at a piece of land out in the ETJ.
At this point, Mayor, Councilman, we don't have a site. We're just looking. It could be, again, it's the majority of the increase in our calls over the last 5 years have come primarily east of town, right, between here and Stonewall. So it'd be somewhere in the area. I think the site, it would be, I'm not sure what side of the river it would be on, either this side of the Pinellas or the other side, but somewhere around the river there. And again, we'll start meeting with it. The chief's got some information that he's generated. We haven't reviewed that yet, so I can't tell you exactly.
But necessarily, I mean, the city limits kind of stop
It wouldn't necessarily be in the city limit. That's not a limiting factor because our fire and EMS are countywide, so,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
And the county pays half of it. So, we're looking at call volume as a determining factor. And of course, ultimately, it's going to come down to what we can afford to. The council did budget money this year to, for land purchase, and so hopefully that'll be enough. But as the mayor will tell you, it's going to be a stretch, right, Charlie?
You got it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Will be in the city is in the county. It ends up where the city's gonna be doing about 2/3 and the county's gonna be 1/3. I just want to put that in.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bobby?
No.
Anybody with Kathy?
That's fine.
I don't have anything to add either. Anybody would like to entertain a motion on this one, please?
I move to approve the performance goals for the city manager.
Second.
Have a motion by Jerry and a second by Bobby. Any further discussion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There is none, motion carries 5-0. Excuse me, E, consider the approval of the 2022 hot occupancy tax hot funds process and documents. Shelley?
Yes, before you is tonight is the proposed hot tax, the hotel occupancy tax funding process. The funding is for May 2022 through April 2023. And as you know, the city attorney and I proposed changes to streamline the process several years ago. And this year we are working on an electronic submittal process. On page 109 in your packet is a timeline of the process. And page 1.
Eric, could you put that on the screen up there so everybody out in the audience can see it, or okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And page 118 are the guidelines for the use of hot revenue. Staff would like to know if you would like to change any of the documents or if you would like to see additional information included in your packet that we present you with all the applicants.
Thank you. Bobby, I'm gonna let you go first.
I don't see any changes that I'd recommend.
Kathy?
Looks good to me. Thank you.
Tom?
Bring your mic on.
Well, let's see, the every organization that receives hotel tax funding is required then to provide your office with an accounting of how they spent that? Or did,
Yes, sir. They provide us with reports. Depending on the amount of money they get,
right,
is what type of report and how often they have to provide the report.
right. Well, I would think that, I don't know, throw this out to the council, that failure to submit a report on a report on the prior year's funding, how it was spent, would preclude the awarding of funds for the current year.
Should be able to do that.
I mean, that's one of the things, you get money, you know, at least tell the community how you spent the money.
Yeah.
And,
Good idea.
Shelley, is there anybody that fits that category right now that hadn't submitted their final report for last year?
Well, they have till April
Okay.
to submit. And so what, I think in my letter, I, tell them that they need to be current. So,
Could you put that on your timeline? You know, a certain date, your
I can.
reports need to be in for future consideration of funding?
I can do that.
Okay.
With that?
Yeah.
I think that nail it.
I think most organizations are very good about submitting those because, you know, this is just another way of reminding them that there are some responsibilities involved in receiving public funds. And one of the responsibilities is to be accountable for those funds.
It's also in their contracts they signed.
But a little reminder doesn't hurt.
No.
They get busy doing things and
Right.
it goes off their radar.
It's kind of like running for political office. You got to submit financials.
Okay. Any further discussion from council or staff? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve E, or a motion to say about E there.
I move that we approve the 2022 hotel occupancy tax funding process and the documents submitted by the city secretary.
Second.
We have a motion by Tom and a second by Bobby. Any further discussion? There is none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There is none. Motion carries. Moving on to nine F, consider the reconsideration of the July 19, 2021 City Council regular meetings previously amended at the February 7th, 2022 regular meeting. Shelley?
So at your May the 7th, 2022 regular meeting, you, it was before you to reconsider July the 19th, 2021 minutes that Tom Marshall had requested to review his comments. There was an amendment made after the meeting. We received 2 requests from a council member and the mayor to bring it back to council. And so it's before you again to reconsider the motion.
So Mayor and Council will need a vote to reconsider first. If that passes, then you can state a new motion.
Mayor, I move to reconsider.
A motion by Jerry,
Second.
second by Kathy.
By who?
Kathy.
A motion made by who?
So I'm getting you two mixed up tonight. Yeah, Tom.
Your my brother.
Well, I wanted to even out the mistake, so we're good. Okay. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, there is none. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, we want to amend the minutes.
I'll move that we amend the minutes as proposed in the agenda document.
So is this Tom Marshall spoke about the state constitution and the provision contained therein where laws or directives are null and void if they impact negatively on constitutional rights.
Is that right?
You asking me?
Yes, that's the motion.
That is what's written.
Okay, that's, okay. I just wanted for the record.
Okay, motion by Kathy, do I hear a second?
Second.
Have a second by Tom. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There is none, motion carries 5-0.
The minutes are corrected.
Public comments, okay. Our first speaker tonight is Edward Rhodey. And then George Tudor, you're on deck. You'll have 3 minutes, of course, and you'll have the sound for 1 minute warning, and at the end, if you'll state your name and if you're a city resident or not.
Edward Rhodey, not a city citizen, no. First question, y'all always come up with written comment. You announce how many. Why don't y'all ever read the comment where we know what's going on before the meeting? After the meeting, it's gone, it's over with already. Next thing is, at that time, when Mr. Jordan was here, he talked about a traffic impact study on Live Oak and Smokehouse Road. I never have heard no results on that. I would like to have request a copy for that. And third, Mr. Musman, you mentioned that you would love to meet with people. I'd love to meet with you. Give me a call, 998-5609. I'd love to meet with you, sir. Thank you.
I'm in the book, have been since 1972.
I'll call you. That's okay.
Now, Edward, you didn't say for me not to come by anymore,
Yeah.
did you?
It's fine.
Okay, thank you. And then we have Eric Emerson, you're on deck, please.
George Tudor, City of Fredericksburg, 1015 Avenue D. So I haven't heard it mentioned, but we do have a disaster declaration that's off the books now, correct? I think that's right. And I think everyone should be happy about that. It's been about 2 years. And I just want to remind people that in the government code 418-108 and 014, the council and just like the commissioners court has the complete capability to stop any declaration or that is been declared and keeps going on. In our case, the council had said indefinitely, but the council at any time in that 2-year period could have said, hey, there's no more disaster and we can vote to rescind it. It's in the law. So there's a responsibility that we shouldn't abdicate, and keep that in mind as we're thinking about voting for new council members, that there is a responsibility of the council member as well as the mayor for keeping track of the emergency and the declaration and determining when it's over. Those can be done by, I think, going back to the emergency management plan and updating it, as I mentioned in other forums, that it is the health annex is Annex H is 2017 effectivity. It's old and it needs to be looked at. This is the area where other, let's say we have other bioweapons released against us. That bioweapon could be looked totally different, but it's not listed in hazards. We have to do after action reports. And I believe I've got the after action report here if you want from the freeze. It's nowhere near comprehensive enough. We have not gone over it for the recommendations. And as I said, during the summer, there's no funding that was put in your plans in the summer for those recommendations. I don't see the follow through there. Now that the COVID disaster is over, we have another thing to go do after action for, figure out what happened, what did we do, how can we learn from it, because it's going to be another thing, and so we need after action reports on that. And I believe you need an annual city county public what do you call it, emergency workshop where people can become aware of what has been decided, where's the emergency shelters, what's the new things, and the city and county need to prepare.
Thank you, George. Eric, and then we have Annette Bennett on deck.
Eric Hammerson, resident of the city. I commend you on lifting the emergency declaration. 2 years ago, there was a concern economically and health-wise. A year ago, the concern we had was with ice and snow. Nobody at that point in time thought that we had an economic disaster as a result of COVID. I want to thank the city manager, members of the staff, those individuals who took the time to meet with me and explain the process that you used for making the determination on the acceptance of ARPA funding. I strongly recommend that you take that second step now and turn those funds back in. And the reason I say that is that you have a city charter that says that you, the city council, are the ones who review contracts. You didn't do that. There was no discussion, no public discussion of the contract that was signed in July of 2021. There was no COVID emergency here at that time for funding where we were running out of money. The comment was made, this is just a regular contract. It's no different from anything else that we did. And I said, show me copies of other contracts that look like this. And I was given several contracts, and I appreciate that very much. None of them were directly with the federal government. All of them were with the state of Texas for the use of federal funds. None of them had open-ended requirements. They had specific compliance requirements that were tied to the funds, wetland management, whatever it happens to be. None of them had a requirement for the city to ensure compliance by subrecipients of these funds. I've never seen a contract that looks like that because, from what I can tell, there aren't any. You have a requirement in the city charter that if you want the city manager to do something that's your responsibility, you are to require the city manager to do that. You never did that. You never sent a document that said, we require you to sign this contract on our behalf. You talked about how the funds would be used, but not the contract vehicle by which those funds were going to be received. So the question I've got is, you're spending money on generators, not because of COVID, but because of the winter storm. You're spending money on broadband. How is that an essential city function to provide broadband services? If you think it is, use your excess sales tax and pay for it that way. You're providing funding to 501c3s that raise millions of dollars. If that's an essential city function, put it in the budget. If you want to give it to some 501c3s and not to others, that's fine. Put it in the city budget. It is not necessary for us to accept these funds. I strongly recommend that you return them. Secondarily, as you're looking at developments that you have in the future, think about requiring people to conserve water. It's a challenge we're going to have in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Connect, and then we have Mary Lee Marshall on deck.
I'm going to pass around.
Okay, thank you. Mary, and then Mary Lee, and then we have Tom Marshall on deck, please.
I'm Mary Lee Marshall. I live in the city, and thank you for letting me speak. Before I start reading, I want to say that this city council, mayor, and city manager signed on to this COVID scam when you put the city in lockdown. You are part of this now because you did that. And someday this corruption will come back to bite you too. This is about the corruption between Fauci and the government. In the midst of a deadly pandemic, somebody very powerful wanted a medication that had been available over the counter for decades and known to be effective against coronaviruses to be suddenly but silently pulled from the shelves from Canada to Zambia. In March, at HHS's request, several large pharmaceutical companies donated their inventory, a total of 63 million doses of hydroxychloroquine and 2 million of chloroquine, to the Strategic National Stockpile managed by BARDA, an agency under the DHHS Assistant Secretary for Preparedness and Response. The director, Dr. Rick Bright, later claimed that chloroquine drugs were deadly and he needed to protect the American public from them. Bright concluded with the FDA to restrict the use of the donated pills to hospitalized patients. The FDA published the authorization using language that led most physicians to believe that prescribing the drug for any purpose was off limits. But at the beginning of June, based on clinical trials and intentionally gave unreasonably high doses to hospitalized patients and failed to start the drug until too late, the FDA took unprecedented step of revoking HCQ's emergency authorization, rendering that enormous stockpile of valuable pills off limits to Americans, while conveniently indemnifying the pharmaceutical companies for their inventory losses by allowing them a tax break for the donations. After widespread use of the drug for 65 years without warning, the FDA somehow felt the need to send out an alert on June 15th, 2020, that HCQ is dangerous, that it is required a level of monitoring only available in hospitals. In a twisted bit of logic, federal officials continued to encourage doctors to use the suddenly dangerous drug without restriction for lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, Lyme, and malaria, just not for COVID. With the encouragement of Dr. Fauci and his HHS officials, many states simultaneously imposed restrictions on HCQ's use.
Thank you, Mary. Tom, and then we have Jeanette Hermuth on deck.
My name is Tom Marshall, and I'm a resident of the city. On some old business, thank you. On a new look at some old business,
A number of months ago, the topic of a business sanctuary was brought up. I speak of it tonight because of a documentary I saw this weekend about the rise of Hitler and the Nazi Party in Germany. I could not help but draw some comparisons to then and now. Some of the tactics used by the Nazi Party included then government control of media, arrest of nonconformers, indoctrination of children, demonization of a common enemy, crystal knot. Now, today, government and media are essentially married. Who controls whom could depend on what day and topic you're talking about. Arrest of nonconformers, a hair salon order, PABC actions here in Fredericksburg at a local bar, 6th January, people arrested without legitimate cause. Even I was threatened with arrest in several nearby cities. Indoctrination of children, CRT, SEL, pornographic materials in our school libraries, locking parents out of schools. Essentially, they're trying to replace parents with government. Think about the groundwork that has been laid with Child Protective Services. Now, with people speaking out at school boards being labeled as domestic terrorists, how much of a leap would it be to have children removed from such families? Common enemy. Religion and conservatism is being portrayed as the common enemy. Removing any and all forms of prayer from schools, social media, censorship. Our local paper could be included here. Destruction and removal of monuments that remind us of who paved the way for this to be the greatest country in the world. Crystal Knot. On Crystal Knot, the Brown Church destroyed Jewish businesses and assaulted many of the owners. The police forces stood by and did nothing. Does that sound like Portland, Minneapolis? Disregarding our laws is happening close to home as well. Our governor, county judge, and city council left we the people out to dry in 2020. Those who were charged with protecting our rights stood by and did nothing. If you have not studied history and understand my concerns, then I might be wasting my time. Maybe ask the people of Venezuela what could have been done to prevent the destruction of their country. Please ask someone. 10 years from now, do not be asking yourself, what could I have done differently?
Thank you, Tom. Jeanette?
Good evening, Jeanette Hormuth. I live in Fredericksburg. I just have a number of miscellaneous things here. First of all, last council meeting, I asked for some corrections on the January 18th minutes. I don't know if anyone was listening, but I don't think no one was listening unless I missed something, but I see that it doesn't seem to have been changed. The original text that was on there right now is Jeanette Hormuth, city resident, spoke regarding the citizen C's and assistance affidavit to the city council. She also provided additional 76 signed affidavits at 8:03. It's citizen cease and desist. So I wrote a proposed edited text here. Jeanette Hormuth, city resident, spoke regarding the affidavits to cease and desist maladministration activity that the city council and city manager was served on January 3rd, 2022. She then served an additional 76 signed legal notices. It was notices that we signed. They were legal notices, a little different than affidavit, to the city council and city manager at 8:03 p.m. So I ask that you please put this back on the agenda and make the corrections because this is major. This is not, and Tom Musselman said we want to be really accurate, and he got his in of just changing somebody's misspelling on their name. So I got that. Okay, the other thing is, thank you, Mr. Hammerson, for your comments. You need to send the money back. We have asked for redress of grievances. Everything's been ignored. We get information from the city manager that turns out to be false every time and has to retract things and back up stuff. You have no idea what you're getting into here. People that are finding out about it, there's over 70 cities now in Texas that turned it back. As soon as they see what's in it, they're sending it back. And other places are, I'm getting calls from as far away as Idaho asking about this. They're also fighting with their counties and cities, and they do not want this money. These strings, nobody's explained what are you going to do if you're found in noncompliance. And the government comes and says, hey, you're in noncompliance. You're either going to have to force the people to go against their rights if some EO comes down, open-ended EO, and the way they're being dished out right now, that is a very good possibility. So how are you going to protect the people but still be in compliance? And aren't you prepared? Do you have provisions to protect the city if the government comes and says you're in noncompliance, you need to give the money back now after you've spent it?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeanette. That concludes the folks that had signed up for public comment. Now we'll move on to 11B, because we did 11A already. Text dot meeting. Yeah.
Sure, I'll give the update. Mayor?
Oh, I'm sorry.
You bet.
Didn't have a name there. Go ahead.
So last Friday, we did have a meeting with TxDOT representatives. We had TxDOT District, Austin District Engineer Tucker Ferguson, and Kathy Kratz, the Burnett Area Engineer, and to talk about a number of different subjects. Also attending were Mayor Keeney, Tom Musselman, we had Judge Strayer, Charles Alters, and a representative from Kimley Horn, who we've been working with in our transportation projects. We kicked off the meeting with a discussion of TxDOT road closure policies. All of you might not be aware, during the second winter storm that happened this year, the first week in February, we had some very icy road conditions, and they got to the point where we were having some accidents, and the call was made. The county judge approved the closure of a number of TxDOT roadways coming into town. It was a pretty dire situation that was happening in the middle of the night, accidents and so forth happening. Well, the roads were closed, and then there was a decision made to open the barricades because the barricades could not be manned on either end by 2 employees. There was a change in the policy. There was some miscommunication that resulted in those barricades coming down. Luckily, there were no major catastrophes, but we did discuss that with the TxDOT district engineer, and he indicated that some of that could have been their fault, and the policy change information, he's going to follow up and provide that back to us so we can be prepared in the future. Won't be the last time this happens. We also discussed the status of the relief route, talked about the joint city-county resolution to stop progress on the design and construction of the relief route, the current process that we've been going through since September 2013 with the Relief Route Task Force. And, you know, as the mayor and county judge mentioned, there's just not, there doesn't appear to be county-wide support for the project, for the securing of the right-of-way, very costly portion of the construction project being the responsibility of the county taxpayers. As you received an email today from Kent regarding the proposal for a joint city council county commissioners meeting. I think it's proposed to be the first of next month to discuss this resolution. So again, I don't think TxDOT was really surprised. You know, this is something in terms of traffic relief that the community certainly needs. I think Bobby mentioned it at the council workshop when we were discussing this, that the problem isn't going away, and there's going to have to be something fairly major done at some point in time to resolve the issue. So I think TxDOT is of that same opinion. The project may halt, but the issue is certainly not dead, and I think that's what I heard in the meeting. We also discussed local transportation improvement projects. We really have three different categories of projects: short, medium, and long-term projects. The long-term project is the relief route. Medium term would be the four projects, the roadway extension projects, and then the short-term projects are the intersection projects, the $900,000 package. We've been having a little bit of trouble getting the short-term projects plugged in or getting a definite response from TxDOT on when and where those might be plugged in. And it sounded to us, and there were a number of people, Garrett was there, Kent and others, please correct me if you heard something different, but it sounds like they have a number of those projects plugged into a couple of projects that TxDOT's going to be doing, mill and overlay projects on Main Street 23 and 24. There's some other a little bit larger projects in that package that have not been funded, but it sounded like some of those may be happening. So hopefully we can make just a little bit of headway there. We also talked about future funding, federal funding for roads and bridges. We're taking advantage of some TxDOT set-aside funding for the construction of the pedestrian bridge that you approved last council meeting. There may also be some other opportunities that some of these projects may fall into certain categories that are funded by some of these federal dollars that are being pushed down to TxDOT. There's 12 different categories of funding. All of these roadways, the midterm project extensions do connect to TxDOT roadways on one or both ends. So there may be some potential there as we're talking about a bond election to take advantage of some of that funding. So TxDOT is going to follow up again and provide us information on their new rules regarding procedures regarding road closures and also the federal funding. For those of you that were in the room, if you have anything to add or if I left something out, Garrett, do you have anything?
No, if I could just add, following the, oh, go ahead, Garrett.
Well, I think Clinton did a great job of covering everything. Regarding those short-term projects, one thing we want to work with Kimley Horn on is following up with an AFA, trying to lock TxDOT down to funding the construction of those projects. So I think that'll.
Garrett, what's an AFA?
I'm sorry, Advanced Funding Agreement.
Thank you. You guys talking acronyms.
Sorry. So I think that's very important. As Clinton mentioned, they did hint that those projects are plugged in already, which means their funding are funded. But I think it'd be good to have something to execute, something in writing.
So Mayor and Council, following that meeting, I had a chance to visit with the mayor and county judge to ask them what about the next steps with regard to the relief route. And they indicated that they would like to have a joint city council, county commissioners meeting with the relief route resolution being the only item on the agenda, because we will have, of course, public comments on that at the meeting. And so in talking to the county judge since the meeting, he has identified March 1st at 8:30 as a date where all the county commissioners would be available. And so I think I've heard back from all of you. Kathy, I don't know, are you available March 1st? Okay, at 8:30. And so we would meet here in this room here at 8:30 on the 1st and accept public comments on the relief route, and then you would discuss the resolution.
Okay, and so this is a meeting and not a workshop?
This is a meeting. Yes.
Okay.
This is do or do not meeting.
Clinton, was there any discussion on the not short-term, but midterm projects, the four that we've identified?
We did discuss those projects, and as I mentioned, there may be some opportunities for TxDOT funding for portions of some of those projects. Again, there's 12 different categories of funding that some of those projects and others may fall into and be eligible for.
And the good thing that I got out of that meeting was that when they stack all these projects, and then if there's a project, your project might be in the big stack, but if there's funding for it, and it's a small project, and there's funding, you might get funded. even though you're not at the very top. So let's say that we were doing one of the road projects, either Mulberry or Frederick, that needed a bridge, and the bridge could be shown to alleviate traffic on Main Street, then it would qualify for a level of funding. And they went over a couple of, I guess, a couple of categories that rural communities can fall under. Urban communities have more funding categories than rural communities, but I tried to point out that this is, Fredericksburg we're a rural community, except on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, when we are pretty much a suburban community. And, but that doesn't cut me with tech stuff. So, I think they want to work with us. I was, the money that the state has spent on the relief route study, the area engineer said, they spend money on studies all the time. The city of Fredericksburg spends money on studies all the time. The study for Cross Mountain Park was done 15 years ago, and it sat on the shelf, and we got to the point where we could fund it, and we did. And I think this, the relief route sometime in the future, maybe they will come to their senses and realize we don't need a 400-foot right of way, or we don't need 120 feet. We just need a farm to market road that goes around the town, and that might happen someday. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else, Jerry, Kathy?
Curious, when you talked to them about farm to market type of road, did they respond in any way saying they would send their trucks that around a road like that?
No.
That's what, they would need to be agreeable to routing their trucks across that farm to market road. Otherwise, we don't get them off the street.
Right, again, by definition, a relief route has at least 250 feet of right of way. It's very limited access. It generally has frontage roads that facilitate the access to that roadway through controlled intersections. And just by definition and by function, when you look at the travel time for a large truck going down Main Street from, point A to point B, they're looking for a facility that'll convey traffic at roughly the same amount of time. So if you're stopping at every intersection, if you have a lot of access and you're stopping traffic, or those trucks can't drive 70 miles an hour, it's not as efficient. And that's really what's driving the need for the project, is that efficient movement of traffic around Fredericksburg. But there would be frontage roads, and again, controlled access available via frontage roads to properties and so forth. So it's not a no access facility, but I just don't think they've never have felt that smaller farm and market road would be as efficient as what they're proposing. It doesn't fit. It's hard to say what that would look like in the end. But
maybe when I said farm and market, I also said we need a road like
16 South.
Like 16 South going to Kerrville, which is limited. It's got more access.
Right.
Anything else, Kim?
Okay, continuing with the
Please.
city manager's report, item C, update on the comprehensive plan. Wanted to let the council know we received 7 proposals from consultants interested in doing our comprehensive plan. City staff will be meeting next week to rank these proposals. We will identify the number 1 firm and start negotiating a contract. We're expecting to have that contract ready for the council to consider at your first meeting in April. The firms that have submitted are all very well qualified. 6 out of 7, I think, are based in Texas. So we've got a really good quality group of consultants to pick from, and we're excited about the opportunity to get this planning process started. It will be a high level, as you know, the comprehensive planning process will involve a high level of public participation. So that's one of the things that we'll ask the consultant to define their participation process. And the proposals that we saw have a timeline of anything between 12 and 18 months. Most of them are about 12 months to complete the comprehensive planning process. So I think that's pretty ambitious, but at least right now they're talking about a 12-month process. So any questions on that project at this time? Jason, did you have anything you want to add? And then the next item, I'll start, see if Jason wants to add anything. We, of course, the council has approved the new contract with Granicus for STR permitting and hot collections. We had a kickoff meeting with Granicus 2 weeks ago. City staff met with them on a remote meeting, and very impressed with the responses that we got to our questions. Every question we had, they were able to answer based upon their extensive experience working with other communities around the country. And so I think we left the meeting feeling pretty good that we were going to get the support and responsiveness from this firm that we haven't seen in the past. And so we're moving forward with an April 1st startup date for Granicus, and it looks like it's going to be a really good company to work with. So Jason, have you had some other conversations since then with either Granicus or Avenue?
We did have a conversation with Avenue about collecting our data from them and getting that to Granicus. So they're also going to send me that in advance so that hopefully I can have some updated numbers prior to our next meeting. Can't guarantee that though, but hopefully what they're doing now that they have someone, I think, coming behind them, checking, taking over the work, maybe our data that we get back a little better this time around. So we'll stay optimistic on it.
Thank you. And last but not least is, so I think you well know our police chief is retiring this year. And so with the pending retirement of Chief Swets, we need to start a process to select a new police chief in 2022. And as the council as well aware, this is a very important decision since the person hired for this position is expected to lead the city's law enforcement efforts for the next 5 to 10 years. Our goal is to hire an effective leader who will continue to move the police department forward in a positive and progressive direction. And so this week, we are kicking off the recruitment process. And our goal is the process to hire the police chief will be a fair and open process that will include community input. Prior to making the decision on the selection of the new chief, input will be requested from the mayor, council, assistant city manager, police department staff, and local citizens. This input will help identify the personal traits, knowledge, abilities, and characteristics that the community wants and needs from the new police chief. The recruitment process will focus on internal candidates only, since several current employees are well qualified for this position. That's one thing Chief West has done a great job in, is preparing officers for promotional opportunities. And we do have several of our current officers who are well poised to compete for this position. So we will be doing an internal recruitment only for this position. So starting tomorrow, I'll be contacting mayor, council. I'll be putting out word to the community for written comments from the community. Again, asking them what type of police chief you would like to see, personal traits, knowledge, abilities, and so forth. And asking the public to email me with their written input on, again, what type of police chief they would like to see lead our community for the next 5 to 10 years. Then we will develop a job profile for this position, select finalists for the position, and we will ask the finalists to make presentations to the public, introduce themselves, talk a little bit about their ideas for the future, any sort of changes that they would like to suggest, and that will be a public presentations that we'll schedule. We don't have those dates set yet, but again, I'll give that public opportunity to meet the finalists before any decisions are made. And so hopefully we can get this process done within the next 3 months and have the new chief work hand in hand with the current chief during the budget process this year before Chief Wetz has to retire. So that's a process that we've laid out, and we're excited about it, but we're also sad that we're losing Chief Wetz, and wish him the best of luck and be glad to answer any questions that the council might have.
If not, thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
One question, Kent, and when the process is, the city manager will be selecting the police chief after community input and input from the council.
Oh, yeah, and after
Okay.
public presentation.
And after public presentation.
So, oh, there's, yeah, it's
Right.
still about a 3-month process.
Okay.
Before it's decision is made.
Thank you.
Yes.
Anyone else? If not, we'll move on to council comments. I will start with you, Kathy.
Well, I don't have any comments.
Thank you. Tom,
No comments. Thank you.
Bobby,
No comments tonight?
Jerry?
I made mention about a couple of things there with the county that they had as far as the elections, things like that earlier. Otherwise, I really don't have anything more with the county. If you've been by the marketplace, you can see that we're getting, it would be phase one. We've had so many phases over there in Marketplace, I don't even know what phase we're in anymore, but they're putting in the concrete bricks on Marketplace, and they really look nice, and they're gonna be working up towards the front. We wanna get that whole part done there, because it's really getting bad, and some of those, limestone rocks are really broken up bad, so, it's really looking nice. One thing that I'd like to mention, we walk Main Street in the mornings, and there's some of those places on Main Street where the concrete's kind of broke out, and then there's somewhere between 3/8 to half-inch little cracked and chunk of concrete out. I wish we could do some type of repair there, because it could be a hazard. And then my wife pointed out to me, which on the Milam side of the Pioneer Museum down there, you go just off of Main Street there on Milam it's a pretty good hole. It's like a 8-inch, something like that, but it's recessed down in there, and I mean, it's a pretty good little hole there. It might be a real good trip hazard there, so we ought to see if we can raise it up or put a cap on it or something. Yeah, I don't know. These other things that come up when y'all keep talking about COVID, COVID is not over. We just need to try and protect ourselves and keep everybody safe. And I'm not in favor of returning the funds. I'll never vote for that. Thank you.
Thank you. The only comment I would like to make this evening is that I hope all the citizens of our city and county and possibly the entire state of Texas enjoy what a beautiful sunny day we had, because it's coming back. It ain't gone yet. So thank you all again this evening for being here and live streaming. With that, we'll go to items for future agendas.
Mayor, Council, on page 125 of your agenda packet is a listing of, a tentative listing of the agenda items for the next several months. I wanted to mention a couple of important things coming up for your next meeting on March the 7th. First off, we have some street closures for special events scheduled for the remainder of the year, including the 175th parade, anniversary parade. We've got the 4th of July parade and various other events. We'll have all those street closures on for your consideration. And then we have the public hearing on amendments to the zoning ordinance with regard to STRs. And then we will have, it says approval of ordinance, but this will be the first reading of the STR ordinance at your next meeting. So we will expect probably a good crowd to be on hand for that meeting. And then in addition to that, we will have the STR fee ordinance. That's a separate ordinance involving our fees. And so both those will be on your agenda. And a couple other things I'll mention. When the council last year approved the new management contract for Fort Martin Scott, you asked Jody to make regular update reports, progress reports to the council. So we have the former Texas Rangers scheduled to update you on their management of the Fort Martin Scott. In addition to that, we've asked him to give us an update on the former Texas Rangers Museum, how they're doing on their funding and planning for the museum project here across the street. So Jody will give a report on both those. And then we have number 14 there. We have a resolution that the police department will be presenting with a contract with TxDOT for cameras, at the entries into town. And that they will be presenting that resolution for your consideration. So those are a few items coming up for March the 7th. And of course, that's all subject to change as we get closer to the meeting. But, of course, the big item, of course, will be STR, first reading of the ordinance. Any questions?
Again, will we have that meeting here? We'll be at the university.
I never scheduled it.
Do we need to take off approval of RFP hotel conference center?
Yes, sir, that's all. And also the relief resolution maybe.
So do you anticipate after we get public comment on the STRs, we will discuss the fifth draft or whatever comes from P and Z on the 7th?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question.
Are on the March 7th, at that meeting after public comment on STRs, do you anticipate we will then discuss among ourselves the P&Z?
Yes, any changes, again, this is first reading only. Any changes you want to make at the first reading, we can incorporate that into the ordinance and bring it back for your second reading.
Okay.
And that would be by council decision.
Yes.
Any changes?
Yes, yeah, planning and zoning is just recommendations.
Right.
Yeah.
So Kent, on the landmark designation, Jason, is that the house on Woodcrest?
I believe so, and I would like to just share with you that the owner is on board with that designation.
Okay, anything else, council? Questions on that? If not, I'll go to item 14 and then call a short recess. Executive session, the city council will recess its open meeting and reconvene an executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.074. Personal matters. A, consider and discuss the appointment, evaluation, and duties of a public officer or employee, specifically the city manager. Section 551.074. We will take a 5-minute recess.
I move
we need a motion to go out.
Motion.
I move we go out of regular session and executive session.
Second.
And motion by Jerry and a second by Bobby. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Okay, 5 minutes, guys.
Yeah.